Political World Part 2. Core and Prophecies. So one of the principal cause of social unrest in general is the core prophecy, economic spatial structure that is such a common feature of modern status. So one of the most cause of social unrest right now is core and prophecy. An example is rich core and poor prophecy often exaggerate separate tendency in the peripheral areas. And in Canada, the physical and human factor have resulted in strong feeling of regionalism. And regionalism is people have become more addictive to the areas where they're living. They have started to see themselves quite differently from the rest of the Canada. And this has become a major cause of instability. The unit of contemporary Canada is threatened not only by Quebec but also by various Western Canadian separatist movements. So just like Quebec wanted separation from rest of Canada, this is not the only one, but there are also Western Canadian separatist movement who wants to be separate. Next is boundaries. So they mark the limit of state sovereignty. So boundaries kind of set off where the state ends and where the next country state begins. And there are two types of boundary. The first one is antecedent. They were established before settlement began, and they were subsequent. These were defined after an area has been settled and the basic form of human landscape has been established. So two types of boundary, antecedent and subsequent. Form of government. So the two principal philosophies that are accepted today are capitalism and socialism, but a number of related or alternative ideas are also important to us. And the fundamental to the capitalist form of government is democracy, and it's a rule by the people. It employs five features, and the first one is regular, free, and fair election to the principal political offices, and this is the one we see the most. Second one is universal suffrage. Third is government that's open and accountable to the public. Fourth is freedom for state citizens to organize and communicate with each other. A just society offering equal opportunity to all citizens. So democracy is by the people. Here you have free election, you're open, there's a universal suffrage, and government is open and account and willing to changes their public wants it to be, and there's a freedom uh, to every citizens to communicate with each other or to organize the events they would like. So monarchy is ruled by one person, and oligarchy is ruled by few, usually those in possession of wealth. And dictatorship employs an oppressive and arbitrary form of rule that is established and maintained by force and intimidation. Anarchism rejects the concept of state and the associated division of societies of rulers and ruled. So monarchy is just ruled by one person, oligarchy is by few and especially those with the wealth. Dictatorship is just by force and intimidation. Anarchism rejects both the rulers and the ruled. So socialism is an imprecise term, but we can identify two general characteristics of socialist regime. They aim to remove any and all feature of capitalism, especially private ownership of resource allocation by the marketplace, and the class structure associated with them. They have the power in principle to make substantial changes to society. So they want to remove capitalism and they want to make some changes to the society. Sub-state government. In many states, political authority is not entirely centralized at the national level. The political geographer Pattison has distinguishes three levels of centralization, and those three are unitary, federal, and compound unitary. Unitary is the most centralized form of government. Local governments are used by the central state to organize the political hinterland. Federal, the least centralized. Examples include Australia, Canada, and United States. One purpose of federalism is to prevent one level of government from dictating to another. So unitary is most centralized and federal is least centralized. And compound unitary is midway between federal and unitary, right? These system devolves subsequently power to sub-state power to subnational government but less power than in the federal case. So all large population states are federal, although most common type generally is unitary. creating electoral bias. So first is gerrymandering. It aims to produce electoral bias in one of two ways, either by concentrating supporters of the opposition party in one electoral district or by scattering those voters so that they cannot form a majority anywhere. Because it's just one, they won't form a majority. If it's like everywhere, they still won't form a majority. Malappointment. It reflects the fact that rulers are typically much less densely populated than urban areas. In this case, boundaries are drawn so that rural electoral districts contain a relatively small number of voters who are thus able to exert a much greater influence than the same number of opposition voters in large urban districts. So gerrymandering and malappointment. Four types of effect on voting are, so there's this sectional effect, it's a political culture differences, there's an environmental effect, if there's an unemployment, more successful the Labour candidate party will be, contagion effect and contextual effect, individual may be influenced in their voting decisions by their social context. So voting is influenced by both class and place. Conflict over resources. So conflict over resources is central to several past and ongoing international and civil wars, and resource shortage will play a key role in future conflict. Conflict may be grouped into four categories. The first one is traditional conflict between states, relates to their religion, independence movement against foreign domination or occupation, just like happened in the past, sectional conflicts, and civil war that aim to change regimes. So in the future, the most conflicts will be because of shortage and stuff like that. And the world may not be at war, but it is most certainly not at peace with itself. Conflict will be based on cultural division for six basic reasons. The first one is culture difference of language, religion, tradition are more fundamental than differences between political ideologies. So the cultural differences, as the world becomes smaller, contacts will increase and awareness of culture differences may intensify. The ongoing process of modernization and social changes separate people from long-standing local identities and weaken the state as a source of identity. Increasingly, various fundamentalist religions are filling the gap, providing a basis for identity. The less developed world is developing its own elites with their own non-Western ideas of how the world should be. Culture practice take especially religion are difficult to change. Economic religionism is increasing and is most likely to be successful when rooted in common culture.